Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Lechtich Mutzer podcast. We continue with Pele Yoeitz. We are on day 100, and we are on page 250 in the Art Scroll. So we've been discussing Bizayon, disgrace, and yesterday we left off with how when a person does get his dose of Bizayon, he should use it as a stepping stone for greatness, and he can become as powerful as the sun, because he's realizing that it's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he should be thankful that Hashem didn't use it in other ways, that there's a loss of money. And now, says the Pele Yoeitz that the instructions to avoid the meaning being mevaza other people applies even more powerfully with respect to one to whom a person owes a debt of gratitude, which would seem to be logical. Like, I shouldn't be mevaza anyone, and certainly someone who I owe gratitude. That's the biggest slap in the face. That's the biggest act of brazenness, of kfiyas toif. A person must always be careful not to be ungrateful, and not to belittle a person who has benefited him in any way, even with a small benefit of any type. Go and learn this from the Gemara says in Brachos. We see this by Moshe Rabbeinu, that he didn't strike the Nile to initiate the Makas Dam because he was saved through it when he was a little baby. And we see the inning of Akaras HaToif. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't want to strike the river because he derived benefit, because it contained him literally. He was able to float and his life was saved until Basi came. And similarly, he didn't strike the dust of the land because he received benefit from the land when he used it to hide the body of the Mitzri that he struck. So although the river and the land certainly didn't intend to provide the benefit, it was automatic. It was not even subconscious. It was just like, it's the Bria, it's nature, quote unquote. But Moshe Rabbeinu nevertheless felt a debt of gratitude toward them and would not treat them in a demeaning manner. He wouldn't hit it because of Hakaras HaToif. And certainly when it comes to a human being, a mortar, flesh and bones, a person who did something to you in any way, his love for the person must be that much more potent and everlasting. And even if his fellow struck him, he should keep quiet and calm and continue to follow his obligations per the Torah. And he shouldn't say, oh, he did it to me, so I could do it to him now. No. It does not. What Yenim did to you doesn't undo your obligation to him. And he stands to lose a great deal by reacting with anger. And thus, let one sit in solitude and be quiet. And in that way, when you're quiet and you just take it and you think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you realize it's all from the Eibishter, that is the wise way and ultimately how you're going to take schar. And to reiterate, the point is not that a person should remain silent when a person treats him disdainfully and when he gets hurt, harmed, he gets belittled. Rather, he should not be bothered. He should work that he shouldn't even be bothered. Due to this, that he sees himself lowly, he should view himself as dust of the earth. This is the true attribute of, he calls it over here nishtavon, which comes from hishtava, I believe is the word, which means equanimity. It means just keeping balanced. Don't go crazy when things go good. Don't go crazy when things go bad. Just stay balanced. Middle of the road. And Ashrei, praiseworthy is the person that reaches the levels of equanimity, of balance. There's no better. You want to know what's the best midah to achieve? It's equanimity. Why is that? We'll see, there was once a story about a certain chassid was asked which day of his life it was that he experienced the greatest pleasure. And he said, on inyanim that have to do, that pertain to my guf, my physical pleasures, there's no reason to rejoice. For everything is hevel avalim. And anything that's good is bad. It doesn't make a difference. It's all too many. Everything's futile. It doesn't make a difference. But said the chassid, if there is anything to celebrate, it can only be something spiritually rewarding. And what was his greatest happiness, spiritual enjoyment? It was in the following story, the following episode. One day he was taking up lodgings in the hold of a ship. And the ship was filled with noblemen and wealthy people. And one of the people, the nobleman, he had to relieve himself and went down to the hold of the ship, on the bottom of the ship, where this chassid was. What happened was, this person, this nobleman, had to relieve himself, and he did it on this chassid. And when this chassid saw that he had instilled the attribute of hishtavaya, of equanimity, into his nefesh, to the degree that he wasn't bothered at all by what had transpired, then his heart, said this chassid, was jubilant. It was beaming with joy and happiness and simcha. His soul was elated for this great good that he acquired for his soul. So what we see over here is the midah v'shtavaya, when you're able to hold through, resilience, resolve, focusing on what's truly important, that it shouldn't even bother you. That's the greatest level, the greatest achievement of equanimity, of realizing it's all, obviously it borders, it's a cousin, if not a brother of bitachon, but you realize it's all from the Eibishter, and there's a bigger picture over here. You could call it not being petty, but then you could say that's not really being petty if someone exposes themselves and relieves himself on you. They say that's a little bit of a tall order to call that being petty. However, when one does work this through, works in it, exercises it, the midas, the levels of wholesomeness are in l'shayar. This was the chassid's happiest, most joyful time of his life. And while most will find it difficult to truly attain this level, as you know, we always have to try our best. And if a person finds that he can't control his feelings to such a degree that he will not be upset in his heart by those who disparage and disgrace him, even so, he can control his words and not reply to one who insults him. At least if I haven't reached the level of equanimity, at least I can keep quiet. I can react, but I can control my reactions. So even if it bothers me inside, and even if I'm boiling, I'm steaming, I'm pots boiling with anger and rage inside, but it doesn't necessarily have to translate into my verbal reaction. And if I work on that, that's a huge madriga in and of itself. And the goal is, that's what it means in the pasuk. When a person holds his tongue, he gives himself time before he reacts, so he can regain his composure with pure thoughts that will act to completely remove this feeling of anger from his heart. And through this virtue working on himself, it's definitely a huge step in the process of reaching this level of ishtavaya, of equanimity, and thus he will attain true joy and greatness when he works on this, takes it step by step. And while it's a tall order to say that, like we said before, if one really gets such a bizayin, this chassid was the target of someone else relieving himself, he reached the level of not even reacting in his heart. He was so perfectly worked on. But for us, if we don't respond, we don't scream, we don't yell, we don't, whatever it is, we control that. That is definitely a huge step towards this inyan of hishtavaya, of equanimity, which will ultimately bring us, as we say over here, ultimate and true sasan, simcha, yasig, true joy and gladness to our lives.